Hello. Let's work on this mod a little bit. Hope everyone's doing well, if anyone's there. So we got to keep working on the magic mod. This rewrite, it's a big one. It's a big one. I haven't had too much time this week to work on it, but we can change that now. Let's start the game. I got my guide here, and I think I figured out how magic, the casting of spells, is going to work. I've been starting to map out the mod flow, which this creative world just became a lot more important because of that. This is like, you know, the mod flow here. So let's just do a quick review. This will actually help me a little bit too. There we go. See, this is the old one. Old tests and everything. I don't think I'm gonna be able to easily, you know, make it to where like you could look at some of this old stuff and meditate on it. I was banking on a block behavior for on looked at, to, you know, for that to be passed through as a block behavior. It is not currently. So I'm a little unsure of how I could easily tap into that. If I could have just used a block behavior, I could have just as everything loaded through, like on the, what is it, asset finish whatever it is, you know, in the made mon system, I'd be able to say like, okay, if it's this scribe table, then attach this behavior, right? I can't really do that. Or at least I could, but it doesn't, that doesn't extend on looked at. So I'm kind of back to square one there. I gotta figure that out. Maybe someone that's a little more knowledgeable on how to, you know, as I make this mod and as I make all my other mods, it's like you're always learning, right? You're always trying new things. So my hope is that I find out how to like extend things like that myself, you know, like an easy way. Hey, Nanotech. Oh, music's a bit loud? All right. There we go. That should be better. Yeah, it kind of was loud. I had it in, you know, like me listening mode. How you doing, Nanotech? This is the new mod. the new flow of the mod. So you'll make your manual of magic arts. That I'm going to redo the whole GUI. I'm going to make the book a lot bigger. And I'll put like recipes and a bunch of stuff in it. It's going to be similar to like other Minecraft mods. Like this is going to be how most of the information's going to be passed to the player. And actually through this, I think I'm going to make a whole GUI with like a flow, you know, like the mod flow. So it will kind of be like an achievement system. You've been busy, man. Yeah. So I've been like piecing together all of my stuff here, trying to figure everything out. And I think I did a pretty good job here. So right, it all starts with like Rift Bloom. You harvest that and you'll get your rusty dust and your shifting fibers. You'll be able to make your magic chalk right away from it. It's just gonna take 4 rusty dust, parchment, and a stick to make it. Shifting fibers, you'll be able to make the mage weave stuff. You'll also be able to make parchment with a barrel recipe to supplement some of the parchment you'll have to use in magic. You'll be able to do a very simple ritual. It's going to be the ritual of creation, and you will make your Thalmic workbench. I fixed all the bugs and all this stuff too. Thalmic workbench works perfectly fine now. And then from there, you'll be able to make all this other stuff, you know, with this. So you'll have your enchanted stone, and there's a bunch of flavors of it. I'll just show quick here. Yeah, you'll be able to build out of all this. I still want to do the texturing a little differently. I'm not that great with textures. What can I say? Models and textures are not my strong suit. I do a little better with modeling, I just take more time. But you're gonna have things like the enchanted stone, right? The engraved, you'll have your ornate. I have pillars that I'm working on as well. I have those disabled right now because I started to like rabbit hole myself when I had a lot of other things to do. Kind of sucks when you work on mods, you know, yourself. That's one of the downfalls. And then you'll be able to make this rustic compound. I actually wanted to utilize rot because you never really have like a use for rot. So I think it'd be kind of cool to make this catalyst, this rustic compound. And then from there, you'll be able to kill elemental creatures. They will have a chance of dropping fragments of fire or whatever the fragments are for their element. And that's how you're going to make like the lesser crystals. You'll be able to make just your regular Arcanus, and then you'll have your basic staff, right? And everything up to this point, like this whole strip, is what I would consider the new tier 1, where you're kind of caveman, magic. When you get the staff, it's going to be unique because this is going to be how you cast your transmutation. This is also, you'll be able to get different versions of this staff here, depending on what fragments you use. And you can really view the basic staff like a shovel, like a spear, like like an axe, all the entry level stuff. This is like your tools, but it gets magic in your hands. You'll be able to start using your mana to cast spells. I'm thinking of doing something where you could use Rusty Dust as a mage to do simple transmutation until you get like the basic staff. I may change it to where like the basic staff, you don't need all of this stuff. I had played with the idea of having like Rusty Dust in your offhand, and then like a stick in your main hand, and then you create it by like meditating with those two things, or it's like an on-use kind of thing where you get this thing, right, and you actually it wasn't Rusty Dust, it was Arcanus, because you can make Arcanus without any anything special. So you would have like your Arcanus in your main hand, a stick or something in your offhand, and then you would create your basic staff that way. I may end up doing that instead of this recipe, but either way, these recipes are going to be the same. And then this opens up elemental attributes. So the idea is going to be, as you cast a certain type of spell, you will gain affinity to that element on the back end. You won't, it's going to take a lot. You're not going to be like, oh, I'm a fire mage after using 5 of these, staves of fire, and shooting a bunch of fireballs. But it's something that you could start working towards. Particles converging onto the tip or something to create the staff would be cool. I would love to find a way to do particles on an item that you're holding. There's probably some way of doing it. But that would probably... I would probably have to do something like on held animation, I assume, and then figure out like how the particles are going to have to be. It's something I haven't bitten off yet, but yeah, I mean, I could have like, it would be some kind of like soul binding kind of particles. I'm not even sure if it's a good idea, if I should have this be just a craftable item. I'm not really sure, but this is all tier 1. Over here, this is going to be, like how everything is separated out with the elements. So I am going to have my entities, right? My elemental creatures that will spawn and exist in the world. I want to make it to where during certain times of the year, certain elementals will spawn. I'm familiar with stuff like that in Minecraft. With this game, I feel like the creature spawning's janky as hell. So I can't promise that I'll do it, but I have an idea. So the way things are broken out is I have my 8 elements, and if you're gonna be dark, like the darkness elements are gonna be the wind, frost, and arcane. The neutral elements are gonna be earth and water, and then the light elements are going to be fire, lightning, and nature. And the way I have this, it's like opposites, right? So if you are neutral and you want to kind of go down the neutral path, your water element will be strong against fire over here. Your earth is going to be strong against wind, right? You know, these are the opposites, so you'll have an advantage. And then the remaining elements are in opposition of, you know, the light and dark aspects, right? So frost is the opposite of lightning, nature is going to be the opposite of arcane. So I'm going to kind of go with that theme. I think I'm only going to have 3 different versions of like the placeable crystals instead of the old 4 that I had. And the idea is you're not going to put down stone anymore and have the rifts convert them and have all this stuff. This is the fragments are going to be a more rare drop because it's going to drop from elementals in the beginning. So you'll have to actually kill creatures. And then eventually you create an obelisk. And this will be like the first researchable block, right? And I think what I'll do is I will reward you with maybe a couple craftable items, you know, that you'll be able to make in the workbench. And it will also award you, I think, 5 or 10 maximum mana, right? So it's going to give you a boost in your maximum mana by meditating and looking at this. But now this is where everything opens up more. So you'll be able to start generating essence. You could transform your Thaumic workbench. And now you can start taking those old catalysts that you've been using, put them in here, and you will start to be able to create either Eternal Ash, Aether Ash, or Umbral Ash. These 2 gems, Radiant Gems and Shadow Gems, they will have a chance of dropping as you're mining any ores in the game. It's just a random, I think it's like a 10 or 15% chance on every ore. So as you get those, right, and you start to use, you know, your Thaumic workbench, you will be able to perform your first major rituals here. And the first one's going to be the Ritual of Creation, or Ritual of Purification. And basically you'll be able to transform your obelisk into your Celestial Prism, so you can start going down, you know, light magic. Or you could do a Ritual of Corruption, which will then transform it into a Devouring Void. Here, let's go ahead and activate the black hole. Right, so you'll be able to do the Devouring Void and then go down Dark Magic. All of these are going to kind of go hand in hand. Neutral is going to, you'll just kind of go down, that's where you're going to be able to create your basic rune stone. It's going to become, I think that's going to be one of the recipes I give you when you meditate on the obelisk. This is also going to be researchable. You will learn the spell Summon Light from meditating on this with like an extra 5 mana points for your maximum mana. This one, I think, is going to give you Rust Volley, right? So you'll gain 2 different projectiles, which of course is that it's an attacking spell. And then kind of going down the middle is going to be a lot of what the old mod was. You'll be able to create Mage Armor. You'll notice I have 2 branches here. It's because Mage Armor is going to grow with you this time. You're not going to be making like the next tier of Mage Armor and it's going to, you know, you throw away your old or put it in a box or whatever you want to do with it. This, I want it to like grow with you. I want you to do rituals or have some kind of way to increase the potency, since it's going to be soul-bound to you specifically anyways. But I'm thinking of having a light version and a dark version for attributes, and then a neutral version. And I think depending on, like, you'll gain bonuses depending on the type of spell that you cast. You'll have your magical repair kit, and then it goes into the new Spell Forge, the new Oculus stuff. I'll be putting in Eldrathrium again, right? And Eldrathrium Runestone, that's going to be the next tier. Magic is changing. You are not going to be discovering spells anymore. Now you are going to... It's going to be slightly different, which is why I have this document up. So the current flow, right, is you would eat a bunch of runic scrolls. You would get lucky and discover some spells that are saved to your player. Then you use the spell forge with a scroll, right, to make a cipher of that spell, and then you throw the cipher into your Oculus and you create your grimoire. I'm going to change that. So now you're not gonna learn any spells. You're not gonna discover any spells. The spell forge is going to be changing. Now it's going to be a multi-block structure that you... There we go. Build a quick little one here, right? There's going to be... Actually, I think I have one... Thought I had a completed one. Oh, kind of. Lame. Alright, so I'll just build it. Weird. Oh, you know what? I think it was one of the times when I have a nasty habit of just Xing out the game and I don't save anything. You know, because I'm super cool, right? So you'll have something like this for a multi-block structure. The middle, whatever, right? Actually, it may be something like this. You'll be able to link this to one of the essence types to charge it. And then once it's charged, you're gonna stand on this block, you'll sit and meditate, and you'll stare at this. You'll know it's active because I'm gonna put a shader in there. Maybe it'll be like a mini rift. There'll be some kind of shader in there to let you know that it's ready. And that shader, I want it to be unique looking depending on the type of essence you have flowing into it. You'll be able to open this up, and you'll have an item slot in there. And you will put a blank grimoire, or you will put maybe it'll be parchment. I'm not sure yet. You know, it may actually end up being like parchment or mana stone or something. Maybe parchment. But anyways, like when you put it in and then you sit and meditate on it, you will peer through the void. Your temporal stability will lower till you're just about at that sweet spot. Oh, actually, you know what? Not anymore. Here, let me actually read this here so I can refresh myself. Yeah, when you're looking at it while meditating and you have your parchment in there, it will cost you a burst of your temporal stability depending on the tier. And that's how you will create the new spell ciphers. Right? So I'm trying to get away from, like, the old system was kind of flawed because once you learned a spell, you could just make as many ciphers as you want. You could pass them out like hotcakes, right? And it only cost you parchment. So it kind of took away how special some of the spells were, right? Like once one person unlocks fly, everyone in the world can make as many fly grimoires as they want. Not anymore. Now that cipher has become a lot more valuable, especially if it's like a more powerful spell. So now that grimoire that you make here, which the Oculus will only be used for making spells. You will not be able to make anything else from it like you used to be able to. All that stuff is going to be migrated to the actual Thaumic workbench. So, that being the case, right? So your grimoires are going to be a little more rare. You're not going to want them to break down. You're going to want to keep up on the durability because you have no guarantee that you will be able to get another one of those spells. Now, I'm going to put things in here to where there'll be certain blocks that you could place around this, and it will up the percentage of certain spells. So maybe, for instance, if you end up having like fire crystals and you have like fire crystals that are close by, you know, maybe a lightning and an arcane, right? You know, something like this, you know, up to a certain point. At the center of this, I will count, you know, like I will have like an area of blocks that I scan. And then something like that will be like, okay, so you have your percentage chance of getting a fire spell, a lightning spell, or an arcane spell went from, you know, this, you know, 1 in however many, right? You know, for the spell, like whatever your chance is, to being like, you know what? It's like a 10% chance or maybe a 20% chance of getting, you know what I mean? Like you will probably see one of these spells more often. I'll have like sigils and stuff from like white magic over here, the lunar magic. If you have something like that around, right, or some kind of like obelisk that I end up putting in, or you know what I mean. Like, I wanted to take from Thaumcraft because I thought that was kind of cool. How depending on what was around your research table, you would have the chance of gaining new research specific to that block. So I want to put something in like that. I think this is going to be a more fun way to discover magic. And by the time you're kind of doing this, you're kind of deep in the mod anyways. You already have all of these like staves that specifically cast one spell. And then once you unlock this, that unlocks, you know, like your grimoire library, right? Your sanctum, your spell staves that start to get better. You know, you start to really feel the magic. 17 Law, hey, how's it going? How you doing, Law? We're going. I'm kind of touching on the flow of the mod right now. This part here, like if you start going down lunar magic, you will start to, you know, it's going to be kind of like you know, Aether themed, right? You got your Aether Ash, you'll have your Astrolith block that you'll be able to build, you'll have some variants of that, and then eventually you'll be able to create Radiant Arcanus instead of just your regular. And then from there, right, you'll have, like, I call it a Moonwell right now, but it's going to be like a kind of wide area ritual. You'll put your block will be in the middle, and this is how you will, I have the idea of like a sigil system, so where depending on the phase of the moon, you'll be able to activate certain sigils. Once you have them activated, all you can just kind of leave it at that. It will consume the light essence to power it and actually run whatever the effect is. But think of it kind of like maybe a Minecraft beacon. Then you'll be able to do things like call meteors from the sky for like resources. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get Moonstone, which will be the best cap for the Celestial Prism. That way it could generate essence a lot faster. Questions for you. I've been playing the mod and just got to tier 2. How do transmog stones work? I haven't had any luck trying to figure it out. Thought transmog stones were tier 3. Could be tier 2. I've moved everything around quite a bit. Basically, don't have anything in your offhand. Have the transmog stone in your main hand. I believe it's sneak and right click like you were gonna use it, and it pulls up a you know, a little GUI. From there, you go down the drop list, right? And if it's a color, you pick your color. If it is a like one of the staves for like the transmogs, you know, like to change the shape, you pick whatever you want. And then once you have that picked and you saved it, then you put your staff in your main hand, your casting staff or your armor, whatever it is for the transmog stone, and then you would just, like, you know, sneak and use that transmog stone. And then it will convert the staff in your offhand to whatever that is, right? You know, like the Reaper staff or whatever. I always have something in my offhand. Yeah, no problem. It was kind of like, I wanted to come up with like a unique way to use it, and I'm like, well, how do I either make it a block entity, which is kind of a waste, right? Or I can make it an item, and then I can make the staves in your offhand, right? So you can, you know, you can kind of use both. Yeah, if you have like a torch or something in your offhand, the GUI will not open up. I could probably code that a little differently, but that's how it currently is. But yeah, this is kind of like lunar magic here, and the next thing here, this is how you're going to be able to make mana potions as well. You'll be able to distill your mana and make things to like draw mana from the environment, and that's how you'll be able to make mana potions. Now over here, the darkness is going to be kind of fun. I always play like a Shadow Knight or Necromancer, Death Knight, right? Like Warlocks, that seems to be my jam. So once you do the corruption rituals and you get your Devouring Void, this is where you'll start to get your Netherite, right? Your Shadow Arcanus, and then you'll make, I call it a Soul Well for now. I'm not super sure what this one looks like. I am envisioning some like wide area thing, but it's going to be more for sacrifices. This is what will unlock what I call soul magic. I have an idea of like weakening creatures and siphoning their souls out, and then maybe potentially turning them into minions, right? Like creatures that you can command. I like that idea. I'm still kind of going with soul magic a little bit, but I know I wanted to have that like kind of unholy death kind of the feel to it, right? Your sacrifices. Stealing souls. No worries, this stuff is super cool. Ah, thanks. Yeah, so that's the general mod flow. Yeah, I'm gonna embrace the necromancy, definitely. And then of course you will have rituals, right? World magic. So you would have already have your you would have your initial world magic here, right, to be able to create your Thaumic workbench. You'll have your rituals of corruption and purification to actually create the other essence generators. And then from there, you will have I have a bunch of other ideas. So this one's going to be like a ritual of recall. So it will send all the players around, like within 5 blocks of that area. So like within the circle, it sends them all to their recall point. So I thought that was kind of cool. You can just ignore like the fire crystals. I'm not sure what the catalysts are going to be. I'm not sure if I'm going to have you have like totems or some kind of sigil that you put down, and then you could draw whatever you want around it. Not sure yet. But this would be like a, you know, a hearthstone for everyone around. The ritual of containment, I want to make something where you could trap entities in the center. Maybe have it to where, like, as it's pulsing, and while it's activated, any creatures that get too close will be teleported to the middle, and then they'll be imprisoned there. But it won't last like forever. But and then that may be depending on like whatever I have you burn as your catalyst, like would dictate the time on that. The opposite, or this other one here, Ritual of Soul Harvest. So I want it to damage all entities in the area, and if anything's killed, it will drop a soul stone. I feel like this is going to be more for like the evil side. But I thought it was a cool idea. Like I want rituals to not mimic magic I already have, but like to do something unique. I have the Ritual of Orebringer, which will bring up a certain number of ores in the world, like up to the surface. And then these, I'm not sure if I'm going to have them be utility blocks or not. You'll have like a Ritual of Water. It creates an infinite water source block. I think that would be pretty neat. And then a Ritual of the Nether, and that would create an infinite lava source block. I'm not sure if lava really has a... I'm not sure if like I'm channeling my inner Minecraft with that one or not, but these were just like ideas that I wanted to do like rough drafts of. I was thinking about doing like maybe other things like see the thing is, like I'd say like, okay, well what about like to enhance run speed? Well, that's one of the grimoires that you can make already, right? That's swiftness, the Spirit of Wolf. Not to spoil your fun, but isn't water already infinite? Well, what this would do is create a pure, a non-salt water block. So there have been many times when I am playing, right, and I have like nice oceanfront property, and I can't water any of my plants because it's all salt water. So this would be water that you would be able to either water your plants with, or it may go into a type of alchemy. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have like enchanted water. Like I'm still fleshing out this whole light side. But again, like I could also have like a little utility block that will just like fill watering cans and stuff too. So these two, like again, these were ideas. I think this was more for like maybe a Minecraft-y kind of feel. Yeah, because I mean, once you pick something up in a bucket, I've just been screwed over. I eventually find water, but it does kind of suck when you're like, well, you know, I want to build here and I can't, you know, I can't do any farming. But yeah, this is, again, like all this stuff, like with feedback, you know, something like that. Now I'm thinking, do I really need a ritual for this stuff, you know? Like, this probably doesn't need to really exist. You know, especially if I end up unlocking that Hydrate Crop spell. So, yeah, this is the general idea here. There's a lot of stuff that's not down yet, like further down the middle tree. You will have these, which are going to be gateways. So basically, you'll be able to get a keystone, right? And program a keystone with, like, I'm not sure if I'm going to have it to where it takes a snapshot of, like, items, or maybe it's going to be just, like, the 8 elements, and you can kind of come up with your own, like, code for that keystone. But places with like keystones can register with each other, so you'll be able to teleport from one place to another using essence. And I think I'm going to have it to where if it's daytime and you're going to be using light essence, like the cost will be cut in half for the distance. Of course, same being said, in the darkness, it would be cut in half. If you're using dark during the day, it would be 1.5 times the amount. And then, of course, neutral is that steady 1-to-1 no matter what time it is. So, like, I want to bring these in. Orebringer is testing some things. So I got a lot on my plate. got a lot to do. I really was hoping that I could use block behaviors to be able to, like, tap into unlooked at stuff on any block and just, like, attach a behavior and say, okay, if you have this behavior, run, you know, unlooked at. That way you could, you know, unlock maximum mana from this. But like I said, for now, I don't know how to do that. You know, like, I don't want to monkey patch anything. I don't want to use Harmony, because I feel like I would eventually step on someone's shoes trying to, like, patch in, you know, for certain blocks, certain items. Like, hey, if you look at this, you know what I mean? Like, I want a more elegant solution. Elegant. So, this is everything that, you know, all the ideas so far. It's all right here. So, fun. Oh yeah, and in here too, I don't even know where I'm going to. Maybe somewhere in here, I'll have utility blocks be created. That's gonna be like its own little branching tree, though. I may end up, like, branching it off of something here. Had great success with some things, only extension methods. Don't know how useful that would be. What do you mean? See, unfortunately, I'm learning every day. I'm not like a coding expert. You know, like, I'll look and I'll see how the base game's doing things, and I can extrapolate. And a teeny bit of reflection. I try not to use a lot of that stuff. My fear has always been, like, my mod ends up screwing up something in someone else's mod. Yeah. So I've been, because trust me, like, for instance, I have another problem, Nanotech. My recipes, right? So if we pull up Rusty Dust, and let's find any kind of stone. So we'll use conglomerate, sure. Right? I can create enchanted stone here, but it only exists in here. It's not part of, like, the global dictionary. So if I try to game mode 1, right? If I try and make it on my person, doesn't exist, right? Because I thought it was lame in my original mod where non-magic users could pretty much make all of the magic items, right? Like, that kind of ruins the immersion that I was going for. People shouldn't be able to do that. So, but, you know, now if I go to, like, enchanted stone, it doesn't have the recipe because it's not part of the global grid recipe dictionary, right? Because I can't include that, because if I do, you'll be able to craft it in your personal crafting table. Now, if this was like Minecraft and your personal crafting table was just a 2x2, easy. I can just make 3x3 recipes, don't have to worry about anything. But that is not the case. So let me go to desktop. I should have already had this. I did have this open, .NET Spy. I think I closed it out before the stream. I don't know why. I was like closing out Windows and I closed it out and I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. So I pinpointed what I think I need to do here. If we go to... I don't think it's this. There's a behavior. Yeah, this is not the behavior. I was looking at something else. It's not the recipe loader. I have so many things open. Sugar. All right, I'm gonna have to find it again. But I think it has to do with handbook. If I did a search by handbook, I'll know it when I see it. Collectible behavior. Here it is. This is what it is. So there's a part down here. If I go to world.grid, this right here. This, I think, propagates it does the JSON, and in the handbook it will get like whatever the recipes are. I need to find a way to put my own for each in here. Or I'm not sure if it would work. If that doesn't work, then I would have to like create my own collectible behavior and like mimic all of this stuff to inject my, because I want you to go into the handbook and be like, oh, enchanted, enchanted stone, how do I make it? I could click on that and I can just have a little grid, and maybe I could put something in there that says, oh, this is made from the, made by Thaumic Workbench, and then I can give you the crafting recipe. Hey, Love, thank you for the sub. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll need to access underlying OpenGL API, so pretty specific. Interesting. Now that's interesting. I might look at this this weekend to see what would be possible. Great mod, love the work. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. This has been a labor of love, but I'm really excited because I'm trying to make a mod that I want to play. And the current version, I went through. I probably should have pushed out another update, but like I fixed a lot of things, right? Like I'm starting to move, like the recipes out of the Oculus and into, so you could get like magic earlier. And then I'm like, it still feels disjointed having tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4 being so rigid. Like for instance, like with the new version, this whole little 1 here, like your tier 1 magic, that goes away. I'm also not going to put a cap on maximum mana. It's just like the cap's gonna kind of become, the rate in which you get experience, right? So eventually you'll just start to plateau. I'm not even sure what that number is going to be. You may be able to have 1,000 mana. I'm not sure. But all of that stuff, like really, it's your shortcomings, right? Your handicaps are going to be the items that you have, and maybe some knowledge too, right? So like meditating and doing the new researching for this, that will unlock some crafting recipes. That doesn't mean if someone else already has a celestial prism that you won't know how to use it or do anything with it. You will. But it's just, getting to that point, you'll have like an item kind of progression. And then it turns out, right, if you do end up getting a more powerful grimoire, and you don't have the maximum mana to cast it, I don't put restrictions on that anymore. If you could find a way to artificially raise your mana with buffs or whatever I put in, you know, that's going to be your handicap for casting spells. And I'm still debating on how I'm going to have spells. So initially I had the idea of why not just fully embrace the Ars Magica approach, right? And have like parts of spells that you can like combine. But unfortunately, it doesn't really work with the Grimoire system, I'm realizing. Because at first I'm like, yeah, because you could make a run speed, shooting projectile, you know, and it triggers all these spells at once and this whole point system. And then I was thinking, like, it makes Grimoires kind of weird. Like, and it throws all of my defined spells out the window. You know, like, so what does run speed really mean, right? Like, do I have to put in, like, a alteration buff, like, part, and then, like, it becomes weird. So I think I'm gonna keep the Grimoire system the way it is. I will just have a way to enhance your Grimoires. Right, so you'll be able to have Grimoires that are maybe a little more mana efficient, but then you'll be able to like change pages out of your Grimoire. It's going to be like how that upgrade system works. So I think I'm going to embrace that instead of having all these like floating little bits of like, because I'm like, well, what if I do like self projectile, right? And then you can put projectile fire to shoot a fireball, but then you have to put damage on there so it does damage, right? And I'm like, it's actually going to reduce the amount of spells that you could use by a significant margin doing all that stuff. And it only works in Ars Magica because you would kill a bunch of creatures, right? You could farm them. You would get those little orb drops of like the different colors, and then you would have like your tree that you would be able to put those points into as you eat them to unlock new spell bits. And I'm like, I remember you go halfway through that list because the balancing just wasn't there, and you could craft any spell that you wanted, any of the good spells, right? And then you pretty much become a god at that point. So I didn't want to do that. Like, I still want you to have the journey and like build your power, but you know, those are my thoughts. And that's what I'm actively working on. So as I'm going down the tree, I'm just trying to think, like, what do I have in the mod currently? This actually came right before I started the live stream. Like, how do I get magic into people's hands faster? And it's basically going to be this, right? You're going to be able to, you could find sticks everywhere. Arcanus, you just need to harvest some rift blooms and make some charcoal. Right, so you have to at least be that far in the game to start using magic. And the rustic compound, like, I think I want to add more ways of using rot. But, you know, I definitely think this is cool. But, you know, you get your basic staff. And then you can, you know, and then the elemental system, I have one of two ways I'm thinking of doing it. Either you can attune to a certain element, so I could become a fire mage, right? By casting enough fire spells, or there's going to be tomes that are going to drop from the elemental creatures that I put in. Those tomes are going to be kind of like bursts of, you know, EXP in that certain particular school of magic. And then when you're high enough in that experience, right, you would wait for a temporal storm, you would build your gateway, and then you would kind of put all the crystals on the outside, like that idea, walk through it during a temporal storm, because that's when it activates, and then you become a fire mage, right? And by being a fire mage, you'll have pros and cons. Like, you don't have to attune to an element, but if you do, all of your fire spells will do a lot more damage, like all your projectiles. They will cost less mana. But, you know, for like a fire mage, maybe if you go in water or out in rain, it either, you know, hurts you, like it's like a damaging debuff, or maybe it makes it to where you don't, you know, your mana drains, or, you know, like there'll be like pros and cons. Maybe for fire, you'll be able to run a little faster, but, you know, maybe you'll also be a little more hungry. So it's almost like a subclass, right? So I can have something like that, or I could have it to where you could attune to one of 3 classes, right? So you can either become just like the neutral, side. You could attune to the light side, or you can attune to the dark side. And depending on what you attune to, that's what these elements are for over here, right? So if you're light, you would gain bonuses with fire, lightning, and nature magic, right? So if I cast any of these spells, I will hit harder. You know what I mean? Like, so it would be like in direct opposition to like the darkness. If I was dark, I would have those. If I was neutral, I would have the 2 elements here, but I think maybe like mana regeneration, like you would have like an alternate way to regenerate mana. You know what I mean? So like everything kind of balances. I can name like the one like the warlock, the cleric, and who knows, right? The whatever, right? Or I could maybe get rid of the whole attunement part, and I could have 3 classes, right? Instead of a rust mage, maybe I could have, like whatever the neutral is, like maybe that could be a rust mage, maybe this could be like the cleric or whatever, and then this could be the warlock, right? So like you could become like a warlock class, which would have, certain pros and cons, and it would nudge you to having some bonuses in, like the dark side of magic. Whatever that would look like. I'm debating on what I want that to look like. I don't even know if it's a good idea. Like, I know people do like classes, but at the same time, I think magic was kind of cool because you could be a blacksmith, right, from like someone else's mod, or you could be commoner, right, or you could be a clockmaker, a hunter, right? Like you could still be whatever your main class is, but you could still be a powerful mage. Like sure, rust mage does gain a bonus for like the mana regen, and they have like 5% bonus spell haste. But, that was kind of like the perk, right? Like, if you're picking a Rust Mage, you're pretty much saying, like, this playthrough, I want to solely focus on that. So, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea. I haven't gotten much feedback about it. I haven't really talked about it. Honestly, I've been sitting there and I'm like, oh, I gotta say something in Discord. I noticed some people are sending in like things like, oh, this item, I found a bug with this and that, and I'm like, I think I have to explain again that, like, guys, like, there are no more fixes going into the current version of the mod. If you look at the last number, it's like, what, above 70? I've fixed like 70 bugs and made 70, like bugs and or improvements on the current version. That version's dead right now. We're in the new version here, all new items, right? Like new ways of doing things. So, oh, and you notice temporal fragments, like even though it exists here, it's not in the list. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have temporal fragments. I think I've been scarred for temporal fragments. They've been the bane of my existence ever since I started this mod, because I never quite got the formula for them right? Either they were too rare, or people were upset because you had to kill monsters to get them, and then when I made them craftable, other people complained. They're like, you made them too easy to get, now I could just have a infinite rift farm, or, rift bloom farm, and like they're a dime a dozen, and like I had some people complain because they used rusty gears for economy, and they wanted configs put in because you were able to shatter rusty gears to create temporal fragments, but you were also able to piece temporal fragments together to create rusty gears in the Oculus. So those who wanted to just no life farm rift blooms suddenly found themselves being rich. Right? So it kind of cut some of the mechanics of what they were trying to go for in their servers. So I think temporal fragments have left a bad taste in my mouth. Just a little bit. Would the class selection be from the start, or would it turn into this warlock class after you spend time doing it? That's a good question. It depends on what people would think would work. I like the idea, and I say this because I told I think 2 other people this system. Just, you know, having like a Discord call and being like, hey, I got this crazy idea, you know? Keep me sane here. Does this sound like I'm rabbit holing myself? Is this a bad idea? Right, because I gotta prioritize my time, and then I explained it, and they're like, you know, you should have it be a real class. And I didn't even think of that, because at first it was gonna be just like a sub, you know, like a subclass, so I could be a clockmaker if I want. And then I could just, you know, this would be like something specific to magic, you know, like with the attunements. So I don't know. I kind of would prefer it not, like, for it to not be a class, like a dedicated class. Although it would make my life easier if it was, because I'd be able to make the pros and cons really easily by piggybacking off of... but then again, there are some mods out there where the mod developers may not know how to patch things right. So there are a couple mods that I know of that pretty much erases Rust Mage, right? And all other things, because they hijack the class's JSON, and instead of adding to it like my mod does, right, it adds to whatever the extra classes are and just pins it at the end or whenever it gets loaded. It would just kind of wipe things out, right? So some people had issues because they would be a Rust Mage, and then they decided to put that new classes mod in for the other people, and then when they go to log in, their game crashed because Rust Mage didn't exist because the other mod patched Rust Mage out, but your character that you made already had the Rust Mage class and it couldn't pull from anything in the JSON. You know what I mean? So it's like, I could make it to where it's like just an in-game thing, right? You could be any class. Pros and cons to that, right? Then, like, how do I display that information? Because you'll look here and you're like, I'm not a warlock. You know what I mean? Or I'm not a cleric. I'm a Rust Mage, or I'm a blacksmith, or I'm, you know. You pick your class from your mod or base game, right? I'm a commoner. It's like, how do I show you what your pros and cons are? If I patch into the class system, that's one thing, but I also have to think about the gimmicks, and then I have to balance things even more, because it's more important. You're sacrificing a bunch of other stuff, right? So for, like, Rust Mage, you know what I mean? Like, you have your temporal stability loss through meditation, right? That's not going to be as important, because I'm going to be pumping in, like, a couple alternate ways of gaining mana. But, like, the spell cast speed, the walk speed, you know what I mean? It's like, what do I... You know, like... it's a tough one. How do I display these kind of stats to you with it not being an actual class? No... I have to be an adult soon. Oh, what are the alternate ways of getting mana? Well, that kind of depends on what I do with this class system. If it is a good idea and people don't want to attune to only one element, you want to do it in, like, batches, right? I want to be a warlock. I want arcane, frost, and wind to be my strong elements. Well, now I can do something where, depending on what you pick, if this is processing, like if this is considered on, I want to make it to where you could get close to it, being attuned to it, and you would gain a mana regen buff by being around your, like, devouring void that's on. You know what I mean? So you would passively gain your mana back, and you don't have to necessarily meditate. Now, it will consume some of the essence out of your, devouring void, right? But, you know, and the same thing, right? If I'm a cleric and I get close to the celestial prism and it's active, then that would also put the mana regen on me as well. And then I'm thinking all other classes, right? It would be like, while this is burning something, I think I may put something that's cheap, like maybe a rusty dust that doesn't consume, it takes longer for it to burn, so it could be considered on longer, but it gives very little essence. You know what I mean? Something that would just kind of, like, keep this on and running so you could gain your mana buff if you want. I may also have modes for these to where you could just turn them on. You know what I mean? And then it would siphon, or maybe even if they're on or off, like maybe you just getting close to it and being a certain class, right? But that's only if I have classes like that. So I'm not sure. You're also going to have mana potions over here. And your mana potions are going to be cool because I have the idea, if you remember, like, I remember an old Minecraft mod where may have been like some kind of draconic evolution, or maybe something like that, but basically you had your, like, it was like a jar block, and you could store your experience in there, right? So you could and you could pull that experience back out when you needed it. So it was like a vault, right? So this would be like a mana vault, and you would be able to convert your mana into that vault, you know, your surplus mana, or other people could also channel it, right? So you could start using like a mana drain, and then you could convert that, right, and then put those mana points into potions that you could then pass out to players. I was gonna call that moon drip. I wanted like a little distillery kind of system. Oh yeah, the EXP drain into tanks. Yeah, right? Referencing a cow in the jar cooking mod. I don't know, maybe. It's a good idea. It's probably been in quite a few mods, but that's kind of what I wanted to do. And that was going to be similar for like the soul magic. I'm like, well, I could, if I make a mana potion over here, why don't I do a similar thing, since I'm already taking things out and like sacrificing life for the soul stuff? Why don't I have something that does it for health on this side, right? So you got your mana side and your health side, so you can maybe make health potions. I thought long and hard about this because a lot of my ideas were drifting into the realm of alchemy, and I'm like, no, this is not an alchemy mod. If I try to piece it together, it's gonna feel disjointed again. But, right, using that essence, right, and kind of making sense of it, you know? This draws from like just the natural light, the energy from around you. This one draws from, you know, the life essence, like it kills creatures that get too close to it. So you know, so those were thoughts. But still, like, I don't know if my idea is good. Like, do people want to become just a fire mage or just a frost mage, right? Just an arcane mage. That way you really hone in and focus on that particular element. Maybe someone wants to do the big pew pew with fireballs, right? So I'm not sure. Not sure how it's gonna look. And a lot of that, you know, this whole system here is kind of hinging on that idea. And I just haven't, you know, I tried to bring this up before, and people were talking about making mandatory mage towers and having it to where you had to make like a big mage tower. That's what this devolved into last time I tried to bring it up. So, who knows? Who knows if I'll get anything useful, right? If you got feedback, please let me know. Like, oh, it sounds cool, you know, having like multiple elements, or you know what, Vice? I really want to just be like a lightning mage, right? Make me, or a wind mage. I want to be able to run super duper fast and you know, whatever, right? Parachute. So, real quick, did you see my ping and mod development? I think you find it pretty interesting. I did see something today, but today's been kind of long. That's why I wanted to live stream for a little bit after work. Everyone probably knows CloudStrike. Well, we use it heavily, so it's been a long day. I can read that. I do have to find someone to raid because I hit the snooze button for a second time, and before I know it, it's going to be the third. And I gotta start making dinner. I gotta start. But for anyone too, like, I mean, nanotech too. Like, if you think about it tonight and you're like, you know what, Vice, that thing you said about the classes or the attunement, this is a good idea, or maybe you could do this. Please let me know. It's easier to get the ideas now, so I could just, like, coding this stuff's not going to be too big of a deal. But any suggestions, right? Like, it helps immensely. This is the planning phase. Speak now before I start building and laying the foundation. we have playing? May contain sexual themes. Oh boy. This is, we're playing games here, not going on a date. Fun Friday, Lynn. Crafting and Chaos, Vintage Sword. You know what? This person, I think I've rated them before. I think every time I read their stuff, right? Like, it catches me. Catches me. We're gonna raid them. /raid Lin01. I think having a choice is good, but if someone wants to specialize in a tree, then they are weaker in others. Yeah, and that's the idea. You don't have to specialize. Like, if I make it a class, you don't have to pick it. But you would have bonuses, right? There'd be pros and cons for it. Well, it's almost midnight here, so I'll sleep on it. Yeah. Definitely a good idea. I will read that as I'm boiling some noodles here. But I'll read what you put in there. I'm really curious now. I've been thinking about your textures, your animated textures. Well, can't wait to be able to use them. So they can't be God Healer and throwing huge fireballs at the same time. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, what is a healer really, right? Because it can't be so powerful that you could outlive everything, right? Like, a lot of this is going to come down to balance. Why would you pick one of these, right? I made a draft mode page for it as well with more info. Sweet. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any ideas, feel free to talk to me in Discord. I will either live stream again later tonight because I'm not going to bed, or I'm just going to work on the mod and watch anime or something. I don't know. Put on The Office, who knows. But thank you, everyone. Have a great day. See you later.